listening to A Scary State, and this week we're listening to Alabama. So, Lauren?
Yes, Kenzie?
Let's get scary.
We're listening to?
Yeah, in Forrest Gump, it's, he like, I forget what the part is, but he's like, it's Greenbow, Alabama. So, listening to. Right. They're listening to. You're listening to. We're not going back and starting over.
No, because why would I want to make you do the whole Alabama thing again?
Greenbow, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
In one of our previous Alabama posts, I put the meme in there.
Oh, good. It really helps people know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, if they've seen Forrest Gump, they know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. You seen Forrest Gump?
Really long time ago.
Oh.
Like, really long.
It's like one of those things that, like, obviously every movie has their, like, famous lines. But that's just one of those things that, like...
I think the box of chocolate line is a little bit more famous.
Well, yeah. But for me, like, there are clips of movies that are not, like, the most well-known part.
Just on a reel in your head.
Only when people say certain things.
Just when they're triggered.
Mm-hmm. Especially songs.
Mm.
That happens all the time. Sometimes I really have to, like... I'm actually kind of proud of myself sometimes when this happens, where, like, the intrusive thought comes and I stop it.
Oh,
From saying it out loud.
Like, my biggest one is It's Been a While.
It's been a while.
Also, I don't think we've talked about Warped Tour yet.
Oh, no, because we recorded early.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. We warped and we toured.
We lived out our not a phase emo dreams.
Yeah. I'm currently wearing...
I know, I saw
an emo
it.
shirt.
It's a Boys Like Girls shirt.
Yeah.
Who we saw. We sang along to.
Every time I start talking about Warped Tour, my knees start to hurt.
Oh my God. Okay. My feet, my knees, my back hurt so bad.
Ugh.
I'm like hobbling around at the Airbnb afterwards. Of course, it's like hardwood floor. Ugh.
I had to wear slippers around my house. I could not walk around barefoot.
Yeah.
My feet hurt so bad.
It was rough.
It was so well done. It was...
Great.
Super smooth.
Yes.
Really enjoyed ourselves. The
Agreed.
only thing I have, more chairs.
Yes. More places to sit. Because we're sitting on the concrete with no back support. I'm 31. I am too old for this.
Yeah, even as someone who sits on the ground regularly, gets to be too much.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah.
And it was so hot and humid the first day.
Yeah, the second day was chilly.
The second day was beautiful because it was chilly, and then it rained.
Yeah.
And I was just not feeling it this time.
Yeah. But it wasn't like torrential downpour.
At first.
Well, but even like when it was raining pretty heavy, like it wasn't...
It wasn't Blue Ridge.
Exactly. it was raining where you're like, okay, this would be nice if it would stop, but it was also like, I'm not concerned for my safety.
Right. Yeah. Because there was no thunder, no lightning, like
right,
all of that.
Rain.
Yeah.
It got the little chilly. And ponchos become real sticky when they're wet.
Oh my God. Literally, I was wearing a tank top and it kept sticking to my back and I couldn't move and I was getting so uncomfy. And then my chest is getting hit because my poncho's too big. Ugh. And it's like my face was like dripping because it was so wet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually, I just took the hood off.
I would have. I should have.
I like kind of tried to wrap the hood around to like close the top.
Yeah. I was like holding it from underneath, like holding it closed. Yeah. It wasn't working well.
When you guys went back, did you see on the metro like the pile of ponchos?
No, I don't think so.
Because we left like pretty much right at the end.
Yeah.
And so as people were like going down the escalator into the metro, there's just like a pile.
We saw a little pile forming.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a mountain or anything.
It was like,
yet.
it was in the trash can, but it was just like stacks of ponchos.
We saved our poncho because we had to get in Debri's car. And so we put it under our feet.
Oh, that's smart.
To protect her car.
I got into some poor guy's Uber.
No.
I kept worrying that I was like, if he can smell me, I might not be able to get a ride.
Well, because the whole, like the flooring, they had these plastic things on top of the ground, which was really nice the first day to walk across. But then the next day,
stepped in mud the first day.
I didn't. So I thought it was fine. So the second day, water was under them. and you would step on one and you might get lucky and not have anything shoot up, or you might get unlucky and it would just shoot up.
I saw I think it was maybe a comment on something, and someone was just like, it was like everyone was playing Minesweeper and they were all losing.
Yes, 100%. Because my feet stayed dry. Even in the rain, my feet stayed dry the whole time. As we were leaving, those last 5 minutes, soaking wet.
There was a puddle 2 inches in front of me that I was like, I'm not stepping on that fucking puddle. We got out. I looked at my shoes. I was like, I might be able to keep these. That's crazy. Nope. Dream
Stepped
was
in something.
shattered immediately.
Yep.
I felt like I had something on the back of my leg, and I thought it was just like mud or something. But it was one of the streamers
Oh!
that like shot out during Avril's thing.
Yes.
And
Joe and I each had a streamer on like the back of our ponchos.
yeah, I was like, what is that? And I was like too afraid to like rub it because I was like, well, everything's dirty. So I don't want to make it more dirty. But then when I looked back at it, I was like, oh, because there's a thing on my leg.
That's why I keep feeling something.
Yes. It was super uncomfortable.
But yeah, overall had a great time.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. It was
a lot of fun.
definitely crowded, which is to be expected.
Because there were only 3.
Right. But I felt like for the most part, I think the second day people were a little bit more cranky, which is fair. I was a little bit more cranky.
I was too.
So, but everyone was really nice.
Yeah.
As they always are, really.
At these concerts, yeah.
Yeah. I bought 3 shirts,
Wow.
which is crazy.
That is. Okay, which bands? We have Boys Like Girls.
Oh, that was the only band shirt I bought.
Oh, what other shirts did you buy?
I
You bought Warped Tour ones.
Yeah, I bought Warped Tour and then Vans Off the Wall.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
You got the frickin' skeleton skateboarding shirt that everyone wanted.
And it says,
That
"Meet
sold
me in
out
the
so
pit."
quickly.
I like was showing my friends the other day and I was like, yeah, look, and it says meet me in the pit on the back, which I will never do.
Yeah, no. No.
Oh, I forgot to tell you. So at the end, like towards the very end of Avril's set, you know how like where we were standing,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, like right in front of us, it just like a mini one opened up because everyone was like running through the fucking puddle.
Oh my God.
And I was like, this is not fun. I don't want to be a part of this.
No.
I don't want you to be a part of this.
I never want to be a part of it.
Like, I want everyone to stop.
I like to watch them.
And it wasn't even really all it was is people just running around in a circle in a giant puddle. Like, it wasn't really moshing. Just running in a circle.
I could have done that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, but I could.
Yeah.
I could if I wanted to.
I mean, anyone really could because, like I said, they were just running in a circle.
Right.
Well, really skipping in a circle almost.
Probably more skipping, yeah.
Yeah. Not as much shovey.
Oh, see, that's nice.
Yeah. I was like, this isn't really a mosh pit, and more of just like a skip pit.
Join me in the skip pit.
Join me in the skip pit. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was really, really good. Already bought tickets for next year.
I did not yet.
VIP
Yeah, that'll be nice.
on layaway.
Yeah.
So, but really, if you break it down, it's like,
By the time the concert's here, it paid for itself.
right, it's like $200 a day.
200 a day? Oh, that I thought you meant from now until then you're paying 200
Oh,
a day. I was
no,
like,
no, no.
that's a whole hell of a lot.
God, no. But no, like when you break down the price, it's like it ends up being like $200 a day.
And then if you break it down by band,
Right.
you're paying like $15 to see a band.
The only thing, and I think I understood because I feel like they thought it was going to storm on Saturday, or maybe it was just scheduling wise,
Mm-hmm.
but everyone was playing on Sunday,
Yeah.
and I ended up missing a lot of people,
Yeah, I did miss some bands that I wanted to
which
see,
was sad.
but
But some of them I'm going to see later this year,
right.
so
So it kind of makes up for it.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got my friends to start listening to some of the bands that we saw.
That's beautiful.
Not like Ice Nine Kills,
Yeah, I know.
but like State Champs.
okay,
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Yeah. So I was
That's
like,
the point of Warped Tour.
okay, look at that.
Introducing people to new bands.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Need a little bit more room
Yeah.
because it was like a never ending crowd.
Yes.
And I was like, is there a place to get out of this crowd, or will it just morph into the next crowd that's watching the other stage?
Pretty much exactly that.
Yeah.
You just kind of morphed into more crowds.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
It was good times. Good times.
All right, should we jump into Alabama?
Oh,
What?
I found out, I saw a video about the Phineas and Ferb thing.
Oh, what the experience was?
Yeah, because Bowling for Soup sings their intro. I think that's why it was there, because Bowling for Soup was there.
Oh.
Bowling for Soup was not in the thing, but it was like, I think you get like a free t-shirt
And you get a free popsicle.
and there's like, some pictures on the wall.
Oh.
That's
Is that all?
Yeah,
Oh.
that's about it.
Eh.
At first I thought it was like a fun house, but it's just kind of like a...
Because those lines to get to that like attraction were so long.
Yeah. So I'm glad I didn't wait in that line.
Yeah, no, same.
I'm surprised it wasn't like Scooby-Doo because of Simple Plan.
Yeah.
But
Eh.
oh well.
All right. Alabama facts.
Alabama facts.
All right. So let's go back and forth. I'll read one, you read one.
Okay.
Okay. Birmingham, Alabama, once called Bombingham due to the frequency of racially motivated attacks, was the site of one of the most horrific acts of domestic terrorism during the civil rights movement. On September 15th, 1963, a bomb planted by Ku Klux Klan members exploded at the 16th Street Baptist Church. The blast killed 4 young black girls, Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, and Denise McNair, and injured over 20 others. The church had served as a meeting point for civil rights activists, and the attack sent shockwaves across the nation. It took decades for full justice to be served. The last suspect wasn't convicted until 2002.
That's crazy.
The bombing galvanized public support for the Civil Rights Act and left an unforgettable scar on the city's history.
Yeah, I was a little scared to Google dark history in Alabama.
I mean, we knew exactly what kind of dark history we'd be getting into.
Yeah. Which, like, really, it's dark history for the whole country.
Yeah.
But especially Alabama. Mississippi is the next one I'm afraid of.
We have them a little bit further, right? We haven't done them for this round.
No.
Oh,
Haven't
yeah.
yet. No.
Then, yep.
In 1931, 9 black teenagers, some as young as 13, were arrested in Scottsboro, Alabama, and accused of raping 2 white women aboard a freight train. The case spiraled into a legal circus that laid bare the racism embedded in the American justice system. Despite flimsy evidence and one of the accusers later recanting her story, the boys were swiftly convicted by all white juries. The case saw multiple retrials, Supreme Court rulings, and international protests. It dragged on for years, while most of the Scottsboro boys spent large parts of their lives behind bars. The injustice of their story has inspired books, documentaries, and a call for legal reform that echoes to this day.
I feel like we hear about cases like that all the time.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you're still hearing about men who have spent more than half their lives and they were wrongly convicted. A lot of them from situations like this.
Mm-hmm.
Or from a lot of them also from false confessions.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Unfortunately, that's why it says legal reform that echoes to this day.
Yeah. In 1860, more than 50 years after the transatlantic slave trade had been outlawed, the Clotilda smuggled over 100 enslaved Africans into Mobile, Alabama. It was the last known slave ship to reach U.S. shores. To hide the crime, the ship was burned and sunk in the Mobile River. Mobile.
I think it's Mobile.
I'll say it both ways.
I definitely think it's not Mobile. That I know. I'm almost positive it's Mobile.
Someone's going to yell at us and say it is.
We can't make everybody happy.
But the story didn't end there. The survivors of the Clotilda formed a self-governing community called Africatown just outside Mobile. They spoke their native languages, kept traditions alive, and passed down the story of their capture and journey. The wreck of the Clotilda was discovered in 2019, reopening a chapter of history many had tried to bury. Today, descendants of the survivors still live in Africatown and are fighting for historical recognition and justice. Is this that same town?
No.
You know what I'm thinking?
Yes.
Okay.
That was a cult.
No, what I'm thinking is there's a town in the U.S. somewhere that's technically not U.S. soil. It's technically not part of the U.S. It's like its own country.
Are you sure that wasn't the cult?
No.
Because there's a cult somewhere that is has Africa type. It almost looks like a mini golf place, but it wasn't. It was like a town. I think I know what you're talking about.
Not really sure how to Google this. So none of the things are giving me any of the answers I'm looking for. But it's like, there was this town, it's part of the United States, like it's in the United States, but it's not considered part of the United States. And it's like a little town, and they keep up their own cultures and their own like traditions and stuff in this little town.
Are they problematic?
No.
Oh, then we're definitely...
I don't think they are. Like, I think they're just kind of doing their own thing.
Sovereign town in Republic of Malassa?
Maybe?
Is a micronation located in the United States, specifically in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains near Dayton, Nevada. It is a self-declared sovereign nation with its own laws, customs, and even currency.
Maybe.
While not officially recognized by any other country, it maintains a unique identity and welcomes visitors through tours that must be arranged in advance.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, yeah, yours, that's definitely not what I'm thinking of. There was this, like, cult that
There's always a cult.
they, like, created this, like, not like a town, but I guess it was more of like a compound, but
Mhm.
it had, like, a mini version of the pyramids of Giza and, like, a sphinx
Oh,
and stuff like that.
yes. I could not tell you what it's called, but I know
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
That's the first one I thought you were
Oh,
talking about.
yeah, no. No, the one I was thinking of, they're, like, not problematic that I know of, like,
Yeah.
at all. They're not a cult.
I mean, the very brief Google search doesn't say anything like this is like the blurb I see under their website homepage. We believe in freedom for all citizens of oh, this is somewhere different.
Oh,
Slow Jamistan. Want pancakes for dinner? Do it. Fancy a pet aardvark? Do that too. I don't know where that is.
okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Well,
There you go.
there you go.
So, yeah, we were both right.
Yeah.
For very different reasons. From 1877 to 1950, over 360 documented lynchings occurred across Alabama. These brutal public killings were meant to instill fear and reinforce white supremacy during the Jim Crow era. Many of the victims were accused of crimes without due process, some for merely brushing against a white woman or disputing wages. Townspeople often gathered to watch these executions as if they were spectacles. In recent years, the Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery created the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, which documents these victims by name and county. It's the first of its kind in the U.S. and serves as a chilling reminder of the terror that Black Americans endured not so long ago.
Yeah, all of these things are sadly so recent.
Yeah.
In what became one of the most disturbing medical experiments in American history, the U.S. government conducted a 40-year study on untreated syphilis in Black men without their consent. Beginning in 1932, researchers in Tuskegee, Alabama, told over 600 Black men that they were receiving free health care, but instead they were being observed to study the progression of untreated syphilis. Even after penicillin became a known cure in the 1940s, the treatment was withheld. The study didn't end until 1972, and by then dozens had died, others went blind or insane, and many wives and children were infected. The fallout led to sweeping changes in medical ethics and a deep mistrust of government healthcare in the Black community that persists today.
There's also a story of a woman who, I forget what her name was, but it was essentially kind of the same thing. Like, she was used as, like, essentially this, like, living human test subject.
Mm.
And because of her, like, we have a lot of, like, medical breakthroughs,
Ugh.
like, to this day. I can't remember what her name is or even if she was in the United States, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure she was in the United States.
Probably.
Lowndes County, located between Selma and Montgomery, earned the nickname Bloody Lowndes due to the level of violence Black residents endured while trying to register to vote. Despite being the majority population, not a single Black person was registered to vote in the county by the 1960s. Civil rights activists began working in the area, and in response, white residents responded with brutal intimidation tactics, burnings, beatings, and even murder. The Lowndes County Freedom Organization was formed as an independent Black political party using the Black Panther as its symbol, years before it was adopted nationally. Their bravery helped pave the way for broader voting rights, but at a deadly cost.
Remember to register to vote if you can.
Yeah, we still have problematic voting laws
Yeah, we do.
that make certain areas biased towards one side.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, we do. In 1957, 25-year-old truck driver Wiley Edwards Jr. was forced to...
not Willie?
I don't know. Willie Edwards Jr. was forced at gunpoint to jump from a bridge over the Alabama River by white men affiliated with the KKK. The reason? A rumor that he had been dating a white woman. Edwards' body was found months later, but the case went cold due to lack of evidence and institutional racism. It wasn't reopened until the 1990s. Although a grand jury acknowledged that Edwards died as a result of racial violence, no one was ever prosecuted. His story is a sobering reminder of how common and how easily dismissed racial terror was in Alabama's not-so-distant past.
I was watching an episode of Doctor Who, and they travel, like, back and forth in time, and then also, like, to different places in the universe. And they had traveled back in time to Montgomery, Alabama in the 1950s. And the cast at this time, it was a woman was Doctor Who, and then there was, I think she was Indian, and then a Black kid, and then his grandfather, who was white, because his grandmother remarried, but his grandmother was Black.
Mhm.
And it was like those were the three companions because the doctor always has like a companion or two. And so it was the group of them. So you have an Indian woman and then a Black guy. And then, I mean, the white grandpa wasn't. But like that episode, I was so nervous.
Yeah.
And like they definitely talked about that. Like they didn't just like, I feel like there's some where they go back in time and then it's just like they walk around as if like that would be totally okay.
Right.
But like this was just like, no, you really need to be careful. Like remember the time that we're in, blah, 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 like all this stuff. And it was like, I was stressed. And so when we talk about these things, I can't even fathom the fear and terror people had just trying to live their lives,
Yeah.
and I still don't understand and my brain can't compute how other human beings can treat other human beings that way. I just don't get it.
No. Seriously.
So on the less dark side, more spooky side,
Okay. Yep.
kind of. In Camden, Alabama, a stately antebellum mansion turned restaurant has become known for more than its southern cuisine. The Gaines Ridge Dinner Club is rumored to be one of the most haunted places in the state. Built in the 1820s, the house is said to be haunted by the ghost of a woman who screams at night, possibly connected to a murder or suicide that occurred long ago. Other reports include unexplained cold spots, shadowy figures, and ghostly footsteps. Whether it's folklore or fact, the story reflects Alabama's haunted legacy, rooted in centuries of grief, slavery, and secrets.
I hate the fact that a woman screams at night.
I know, that's...
Because one, that's sad because she's living out her death,
Right.
be it suicide or murder. But I don't like that.
Well,
I don't want
it's
to hear someone screaming at night. That's scary. Yeah, no, you won't because, it would probably be one of those creepy things where you jump out of your sleep because something woke you up and you don't always know what it is. I don't like it.
It's like the whole thing I have with the spiders.
Right.
Yeah. The last time it happened, I quite literally rolled out of bed. And like, I was just like sitting on the floor staring at my bed, being like, there's probably not a spider there.
Definitely not.
Definitely not a spider there.
We don't live in the Amazon where you get the big tarantulas that are just gonna...
Oh, no, it was just a regular size spider.
Oh.
But I had thought it was right in my face, which made me like tuck and roll out the side of my bed. Yeah. I'm hoping that never happens when I'm sharing my bed with someone.
Oh, yeah, that would be awful.
Yeah. Because now it's to the point where I'm literally leaping out of bed. So.
But then they could be your like reassurance that it's not actually there.
Or they might say, you're fucking insane and I'm never sharing a bed with you again.
I mean, that's just something where you're going to have to test and see what happens.
Bubbas? Would you share a bed with me? No, because you don't share one with anybody. He said, oh no, everyone went just upstairs and now everyone went back downstairs and I don't know what to do.
Only one person went downstairs, but it's his whole world.
Yeah.
It's not me. I'm the spare human. All right, Alabama. All right, Mackenzie, what Alabama tale do you have for us today?
So this case is a brutal one.
Oh, good.
And the perpetrators of this crime are not what one would typically expect when hearing about such a gruesome crime.
Okay.
I would also like to say that I spent hours trying to find information on the victim, and it was very difficult. Most of the reports about this case either focused on the details of the crime or the perpetrators.
Yeah, you ignored my text message last night because you were researching.
I could be a lawyer.
Why?
Because I've read so many law documents at
Oh.
this point. Because like whenever someone does an appeal, like it'll be posted online. And so a lot of times it's really helpful for finding out details. And so I was trying to find more. And then I found a few more newspaper clippings than like I had previously been able to find. And so I was really just trying to find like the mom saying something. And she did, but not like...
And now you know all the legal jargon?
Yeah, kind of.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's always good to have a lawyer in the family.
On February 26th, that's also my trigger warning that it's gruesome.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have a sensitive tummy or that kind of thing, this might not be the case for you.
But some of us can't go anywhere.
No. On February 26, 1994, a group of 3 rock climbers made a terrible discovery on Bald Rock Mountain near St. Clair County, Alabama.
I'm sorry, what year is this?
1994?
Okay.
You're going to be born soon.
Aw.
They came upon the horribly mutilated body of Vicki DeBlieux, a 37-year-old mother of 2 and grandmother of 1. The body was taken to the medical examiner's office where a full autopsy was conducted. Dr. Joseph Embry of the Alabama Department of Forensic Science determined that Vicki likely died as a result of blunt force trauma to the head. She also had numerous bruises and lacerations on her neck, and the victim was stabbed approximately 180 times post-mortem.
Oh.
The autopsy also revealed that every bone in her face was fractured at least once. Almost every bone in her skull was fractured. A tooth was missing. Her left eye was collapsed. Her right eye had hemorrhaged. There were 2 incisions in her chest, and her left lung had been removed. And all of her fingers and both thumbs had been cut off.
My God.
She was found nude, but there were no signs of sexual assault. The body would be identified as Vicki DeBlieux a few days later from a 1991 X-ray of her spine from a Chattanooga, Tennessee hospital.
I think that is always so wild.
Yeah. Investigators discovered that Vicki had called her mom on February 21st to tell her that she was going to come to visit her in West Monroe, Louisiana. Mrs. DeBlieux later recalled, quote, she said she hoped to borrow money from a friend for a plane ticket. She said if she couldn't do that, she'd take the bus. Then she said, heck, Mama, I'll hitchhike if I have to. I told her, oh, please don't do that, sweetheart. Sadly, that was the last time Mrs. DeBlieux would ever hear from her daughter. Andy Smith, a friend of Vicki's in Chattanooga, tried to talk her out of hitchhiking. He later testified, quote, I was trying to talk her out of it, but she insisted. He first drove her to a truck stop in Georgia, but when she wasn't able to find a ride, he then drove her to the first exit on Interstate 59 on the Alabama-Georgia state line. A few days later, her body would be discovered in Bald Rock Mountain. It would only take investigators a little more than a month to find the perpetrators of this horrific crime.
Oh, wow.
It is no surprise that these assailants got caught because, as teenagers do, they bragged about their crimes. Carrie Dale Grayson, 19. Kenny Loggins, 17. Trace Royal Duncan, 17. And Louis Mangione, 16. Were all charged in the kidnapping and murder of Vicki DeBlieux. Crazy.
Like,
So young.
oh my God.
Bruce Foley and Frank Romine? How do you spell romaine?
Like romaine lettuce?
Yeah.
Romaine.
Okay, Romine. Bruce Foley and Frank Romine, friends of the teens, told investigators and later testified that Louis Mangione showed them a finger in a plastic sandwich bag hidden behind the Bruno's Food and Pharmacy in Center Point. Foley testified, quote, I didn't believe him, sir, speaking to the prosecutors.
Yeah.
I opened the bag up and there was a terrific stink.
Oh.
A right index finger. That finger was later identified as coming from Vicki Lynn DeBlieux and was the first strong lead in solving her murder. Frank Romine said he didn't say anything when Mangione and Loggins first showed him the finger during an afternoon of lounging around and playing guitars. It was later one night that Mangione showed the 2 boys the finger behind the supermarket. It was also discovered that in the weeks following the murder, when the 4 murderers, quote, seemed bored, they, quote, would kind of jokingly say, let's go pick up a hitchhiker, and supposedly allude to other facts of the crime.
God.
Foley also testified that when Mangione showed him the finger, he said it belonged to a female hitchhiker who had been murdered by some of his friends. Foley also testified that Mangione actually admitted that he had thrown a beer bottle at the hitchhiker. He had first tried to say that he didn't do anything. But he said he did not participate in the mutilation of the woman's body, which is true.
Oh, but I mean, if he was, obviously we don't know all the things of the case yet, but if he was there.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
they're all, yeah.
No innocence.
We'll get into that. Foley contacted a girlfriend who used to date a police officer and asked if she could find out if a hitchhiker had been killed and mutilated. Soon after that, Foley and Romine were talking with investigators and sending them to Mangione. I'm just really proud of all these people that didn't stay silent.
Yeah.
On April 4th, 1994, Alabama Bureau of Investigations agent Larry Flippo and Thomas Earl Dixon, an investigator with the St. Clair County Sheriff's Office, went to Mangione's house. As they approached the front door, they saw Mangione driving his car into the driveway. Flippo told Mangione that he was investigating the murder of a female whose body had been discovered at the bottom of Bald Rock Mountain. Flippo later testified that Mangione responded that he had been waiting for the police to come and he wanted to talk to them. Flippo placed Mangione in his police car and transported him to the police station. Dixon read Mangione his juvenile Miranda rights en route to the station.
How is that different?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Huh.
Didn't even realize until I was reading this that there was a difference.
Interesting.
When Flippo asked Mangione if he wanted to telephone his mother, Mangione responded that he wanted his mother at the police station, but he did not want her to hear what he had to say to police. After arriving at the police station, Mangione was again apprised of his juvenile Miranda rights. Mangione signed and dated the juvenile Miranda warning form, indicating that he understood his rights and had waived them. Are you looking up the difference?
Juvenile Miranda rights. It's kind of the same thing.
Oh.
Hold on. Verse. Miranda rights. They're often afforded more protection due to their age and developmental stage, and some states have implemented additional safeguards to ensure juveniles understand and can meaningfully exercise their rights. So maybe it just goes into describing things a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it's, also like your parents, in this case, would have the rights to waive your Miranda rights and things like that.
Okay.
Normally, it would be the adult who has.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so there's like a couple things that are a little bit different when it's a juvenile.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Thank you for looking that up for my case.
You're very welcome.
I didn't even think about that. I was just like, juvenile, that's crazy. And
Wild.
Mangione was the first to provide a written statement to police about what happened on the night of February 22nd, 1994. Eventually, each of the attackers confessed, more or less, to their participation in the crime. Each one pointed blame at the other and tried to lessen their involvement. I found court records about the appeals each defendant made and kind of pieced together what occurred that fateful night.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
All of these boys are guilty one way or another in the death of Vicki DeBlieux.
Mm-hmm. And how old was she again?
37.
Okay.
In the early morning hours of February 22nd, the 4 teenagers were riding around in Grayson's car, listening to the radio, drinking, and smoking marijuana. As they drove around, they spotted Vicki trying to catch a ride to Louisiana. Grayson pulled the car over, and Vicki introduced herself and told them she was looking for a ride. The boys agreed, and she hopped in. One of them also said something of like, oh, well, if you can provide us a place to stay, you can. There was when you read each of the appeal cases for each defendant, the main facts of the case are all the same, but there was always an additional we said that we needed a place to stay, and so she said we could stay there when we get there. But that was only in one.
I mean, it could also be I feel like when there's details like that, it almost makes it more true.
Right, because it's
you know what I mean?
4 different perspectives.
Exactly.
Essentially.
And it could be that they talked to her in the car differently and was like, hey, we need a place to stay.
So it, like I said, it varies a little bit, and even what they told other people. So the gist of what happened is the same, but as you'll see throughout when I'm telling it, there's gonna be minor details that's maybe this part happened, maybe it didn't, because I found it in one place that one person said that this person said.
I gotcha.
So yeah. As they began their drive, Vicki noticed that Grayson was not going towards the highway, and she began to get nervous. Grayson told her to chill out and that they were headed to a wooded area known as the Pipelines to pick up Logan's truck. As they pulled into the area, the teenagers got out of the car and continued drinking. Depending on the report you read, Vicki either stayed in the car or got out and was maybe drinking with the boys. There were some newspaper articles and even some of the court documents. The defense was saying that her blood alcohol was 3 times the legal limit. I think to portray it more as a drunken stupor. I don't know. But the only time that her alcohol level was talked about was with the defense.
Okay.
So I don't really know. I'm wondering if initially I'll drink with you guys. We're in the car. We're hanging out, whatever.
Right.
I don't know if she really did continue drinking when they were hanging out, because a lot of reports were as soon as she saw that they weren't going in the direction that they should be was when she started to get nervous.
Yeah.
So. There may have also been sexual advances that Vicki rejected. One report said that she told them that she was old enough to be their mother.
Well,
which is true.
Yeah.
Some reports also say that Vicki asked to be dropped off / let out of the vehicle, but I think this might have happened before they arrived at the Pipelines and maybe when she was told to chill out. About an hour after arriving at the Pipelines, Vicki walked away to go to the bathroom. Now, again, it varies a little bit because some say, some reports say she didn't even get out of the car.
Right.
Some say she did get out of the car to go to the bathroom. At one point, she walks away from the group to go do something. It was at this point that Grayson said to his friends that he was going to, quote, sacrifice the bitch. It was discovered throughout the investigation that the teenagers had an interest in Satan and the occult, particularly Grayson and Loggins.
And how old are Grayson and Loggins?
Grayson is 19. Loggins, I believe, is 17.
Okay.
So Grayson is the only one that's technically an adult.
Right. Okay.
Satanic drawings and a book that was described as a satanic book by a witness was found in Grayson's car. Supposedly, Loggins was involved in a skinhead group.
Oh.
He sometimes slept in a cemetery and carried around a black notebook in which he indicated his fascination with death, dying, and Satan worship.
Okay.
At some point, Vicki had told the group that if any one of them tried anything, that she would kill them all. It is
Okay.
It is unclear who threw the first beer bottle at Vicki, but when she tried to run, the boys tackled her to the ground. When she was on the ground, the boys began to kick her and continued beating her with their beer bottles. When they realized that she was still alive, Loggins stood on her throat until she gurgled up blood. The last thing she said was, "Okay, I'll party," before she died. The boys threw Vicki's body into the back of Loggins' pickup truck and drove to Bald Rock Mountain. This part is kind of bleh. Not that the rest of it was exactly cheery, but like,
Even more.
so like skip
Or
ahead like
bleh.
10 seconds or so. Yeah, maybe a little bit more. Once there, they removed all of Vicki's clothes. So at this point, she is dead though.
Right.
Once there, they removed all of Vicki's clothes and Duncan placed a beer bottle in her vagina and kicked it
Oh my
while the rest of
God.
them laughed. The boys poked her with sticks before throwing her body over the cliff. She was about 40 feet below them with her head crushed and a portion of her brain was exposed. Then the boys headed to a car wash in Pell City to wash the blood out of the truck. They rummaged through her luggage before scattering her belongings in the woods.
So did they stab her with the beer bottles?
They didn't stab her. Well, I'm getting to that part. They didn't stab
Okay.
her. Not yet.
Okay.
They dropped Mangione off at home, and then the 3 other boys decided to go back to the body.
There we go.
So that's why he's like, I wasn't part of the mutilation, which is true. He
Well,
wasn't. But he still participated.
I mean, there was stuff you did beforehand.
Right. And like some of the boys tried to say, like, you know, Grayson was the ringleader and like we were afraid of him. And
That's
one of them,
always the defense.
right. One of them tried to say that like he woke up in the car to see that his friends were beating her. But like by the end of it, all of them at some point had testified that like all of them were kicking her, throwing beer bottles at her, that
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
This was when Duncan, Grayson, and Loggins stabbed Vicki's lifeless body around 180 times and chopped off her fingers, which they decided to keep as souvenirs. This was also when they cut open her chest to try and pull her heart out, but ended up pulling her lung instead.
Oh my
It
God.
was reported that Loggins supposedly took a bite out of it and spit it in her face. After they took her fingers and gave one to Mangione, a statement from Duncan reported, quote, "Lewis said he was going to make a necklace and put the finger in the necklace." The next morning, the 3 teenagers were found asleep in the truck in a parking lot of a Hardee's where Grayson and Loggins worked. Sonia Gray, who was Duncan's girlfriend at the time, said that her and her friend, Amy White, had found the boys sleeping in the truck. So still just the 3 boys.
Right.
She said that they were covered in mud and blood. When she asked them what happened, they claimed to have killed a dog that had been chasing the truck. She also testified that she never knew of them to be involved in Satanism and they never categorized the killing as such. But there was also other reports, I don't know if it specifically came from her, where like he would pull out this supposed like satanic book and like read things from it and it made people really uncomfortable. But I don't know if they outright said, we did this to sacrifice or whatever.
Right. Right.
Amy White was dating Loggins at the time, and she informed Sonia that the dog was actually a hitchhiker.
Oh.
About 3 or 4 weeks after Vicki's body had been found, Sonia and another friend, Danielle Boso, Loggins, and Mangione visited Duncan at his home. This was when Sonia had confronted them about what she learned from Loggins' girlfriend. This was when the boys admitted and described to the girls what they had done to Vicki DeBlieux. Sonia later testified that when Vicki had gotten out of Grayson's car to get something from her bag in the trunk, that one of them described her as, quote, the perfect victim. She also testified, quote, they said it looked like a mannequin when they described how it landed when they threw the body off the cliff. Sonia reported, quote, Kenny said Amy is dead, and if we said anything, we would be dead too. Louis said if anybody found out that he would pull our intestines out with a spoon. Between the statements from the perpetrators, witnesses, and the evidence against them, all of them were convicted of capital murder and kidnapping. And all of them were sentenced to death except for Mangione, who was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
Damn. And he was the one who went home early?
Yeah, he didn't technically mutilate the body.
Right. Okay.
But he did hide the fingers and then show it off to friends. So, in 1998, Louis Mangione's appeal against his conviction and sentence was dismissed by the Court of Criminal Appeals of Alabama. In 1999, Grayson was one of the 5 condemned to lose their appeals on to the Court of the Criminal Case of Alabama. Duncan also lost his appeals in 1999 to the Court of Criminal Appeals in Alabama.
What does that mean? Like, they just tried to appeal and they didn't
Yeah,
get
they
it?
tried to appeal their sentence and stuff like that.
Okay. Makes it sound like they had the ability to appeal and then they lost all of their abilities.
Oh, sorry. No.
No, you said it perfectly
Okay.
fine. That's just the way that my brain wanted to put it together.
Yeah.
No,
They
you
appealed
said it.
and
yes.
lost.
The way you said it made complete sense.
In 1999, the Court of Criminal Appeals of Alabama also rejected the appeal of Loggins, and in 2000, Loggins lost his second appeal to the Alabama Supreme Court. In 2001, the Alabama Supreme Court once again upheld and therefore finalized the death sentences of the condemned trio, Grayson, Duncan, and Loggins,
Wow.
after dismissing their appeals. In 2005, after the U.S. Supreme Court heard the Roper versus Simmons case, a majority ruling of 5-4 formally decreed that it was unconstitutional to execute offenders who were below 18 at the time of their crimes. This ruling made an impact on many cases of juveniles on death row, including Loggins and Duncan, and they were allowed to apply for a reduction of their death sentences to life imprisonment, given that both of them were minors at the time of the murder.
Wow.
So the only one that wasn't technically a minor was Grayson, because he was 19.
Right.
2 of them were 17, and then one was 16.
Right. And so the age of the one who went home, was he 16 or 17?
16.
16. Okay.
Yeah.
So the two 17-year-olds got life in prison, or got death penalty, but can potentially get life in prison instead.
It does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
16-year-old gets life in prison.
Yeah, he never got the death penalty.
Correct. And then Grayson has death penalty.
Yeah.
Okay.
In April 2005, Duncan's death sentence was commuted to life in jail without any chance of parole. Because of Miller versus Alabama, which prohibits life sentences without parole, both have a possibility of parole after 35 years.
Wow.
On January 28, 2006, an Alabama state court allowed the resentencing plea of Loggins and commuted his death sentence to life without parole. The resentencing of both Duncan and Loggins left Grayson, who was 19 at the time of the murder, the only convict of the case to remain on death row for murdering Vicki DeBlieux. Grayson spent more than 28 years on death row before he was executed in 2024.
Wow.
While Grayson was still incarcerated on death row, the laws of Alabama allowed the state to carry out executions by either lethal injection or nitrogen gas inhalation as early as 2018, making it possible for Grayson to choose either method to facilitate his impending execution, for which a date had not been set yet. In June 2024, 5 months after Alabama's first nitrogen gas execution, a motion by the Attorney General's office was filed to seek approval of Grayson's second death warrant.
I thought that they recently said that the nitrogen thingy was inhumane.
We'll get there.
Okay.
The representatives of the state asked for Grayson's execution to be carried out with the nitrogen gas, which was the third time where Alabama would possibly carry out an execution by nitrogen hypoxia. Grayson had reportedly elected to be executed by nitrogen gas inhalation in 2018, based on court documents presented in the hearing. However, there were lingering concerns over the effectiveness of nitrogen gas execution, as it was reported that the first person put to death via this method had convulsed in seizure-like spasms and gasped for breath minutes before falling motionless.
Ugh.
Although government officials defended this method by saying there were no major problems arising from this method and it was textbook. 50-year-old Grayson was executed via nitrogen gas inhalation at the Holman Correctional Facility on the evening of November 21st, 2024. He was pronounced dead at 6:33 p.m. Grayson was the third inmate in the U.S. to be executed with nitrogen gas. As of November 2024, Grayson was the 22nd person executed in the United States that year.
Oh, okay.
For his final meal, Grayson ordered soft tacos, beef burritos, a tostada, chips and guacamole, and a Mountain Dew Baja Blast, all of which were ordered from local restaurants. Prior to his execution, Grayson used his final words to spew explicitives at the prison officers before his execution, and he also raised both middle fingers while strapped to the gurney.
Nice.
I think they took the microphone away from him because he told the warden, like, you can fuck off. And then they said no more.
Yeah. I mean, okay.
But he did continue to, like, scream and all that kind of good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
During the final week before the execution of Grayson, Vicki DeBlieu's half-brother, Mike DeBlieux, agreed to be interviewed about the murder of his sister. Mike stated he had a few memories of his sister, but he found it terrible that she died in such a horrific manner and believed that all 4 murderers should be sentenced to death, although he understood that the death penalty did not apply to Mangione, Duncan, and Loggins since they were minors.
Right.
On the other hand, DeBlieu's daughter, Jody Haley, who opposed the death penalty, did not agree with the execution. Haley noted that Grayson had been abused in his youth and said that, quote, society failed this man as a child and my family suffered because of it.
That is sad.
She added, quote, murdering inmates under the guise of justice needs to stop. No one should have the right to take a person's possibilities, days, and life. In conclusion, Mrs. DeBlieux described her daughter as, quote, so beautiful, tall with blonde hair. Everyone loved her. She would give you the shirt off your back, not your
Her
back.
back.
Give you the shirt off her back if you needed it. Vicky's daughter Jody remembered her mom saying, quote, she was unique, she was spontaneous, she was wild, and she was funny. And that is the very horrific and gruesome murder of Vicki DeBlieux.
I can swear that we talked about the nitrogen thingy back because that happened recently, like November 2024. That was just a couple months ago. And I swear I, around that time, remember reading articles about people saying it was like inhumane and it wasn't the way that they wanted to do it, blah, 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 because of the convulsions and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't think I realized that it was with this case.
There were 2 others.
Yeah, but I feel like this was the most recent, right?
Yes, but hold on.
So I feel like this is the one that I would have read the article about.
Kenneth Smith was the first one in Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Names are going to mean nothing to me.
Kenneth Eugene Smith. He was in January of 2024.
Hmm.
But yeah, maybe it was him too.
Wow.
But yeah, most people have said that it is inhumane to do. And Grayson's lawyers fought to not have that happen. It was like kind of confusing because it sounded like he agreed to it, but then there's also a lot with like his lawyers trying to stop it. Not necessarily the execution itself, but like
just that form of it.
just that form of it specifically. Obviously that didn't work.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with the idea that minors, even though they commit a horrific crime, should not be given the death penalty as a minor.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
However, I don't necessarily agree that someone should be given parole. Like, not have they can't have life without parole. Like, they have to get an opportunity for it.
You think they should be allowed to have an opportunity, or you think they should not be allowed to
I
have an
think in
opportunity?
certain circumstances, they should not be allowed to be. Because, like, I go back and forth with the death penalty. Like, I agree with what her daughter said because I'm like, how is that any better than what they did? But then there's also just some people that I think are so awful that I don't want them to be on this earth anymore.
I'm in a very gray area with it.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm strong one way or the other. I have reasons why I'm one way and reasons why I'm the other way.
Exactly, same. But for life without parole, if you take someone's life, especially in this manner, which was clearly very purposeful, very brutal, very whatever,
Right.
then you don't get to have your freedom because you took theirs away.
Right.
So do I think you necessarily have to die because of it? No. But I don't think you should get a second chance because they didn't get a second chance.
Right.
You took that away from them.
Yeah.
I think there's some cases where, depending on the circumstances, that, okay, possibility of parole makes sense. Give them a chance, give them a second chance. But in situations like this, right from wrong.
Yeah.
And you chose to do wrong. And you chose to do really wrong.
Like as wrong as you can get, pretty much.
Right. And so, to me, as I was reading into things, it sounded like, and I didn't read too much into the perpetrators. There was articles on articles about like how they were in school.
Oh, I
and
bet.
like, all this kind of stuff. But even a couple of them tried to say like, not guilty from insanity or whatever.
No.
And psychologists testified like, oh yeah, they have some of these things going on, but they still knew right from wrong at the time.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, it's a great argument too, where it's like other people have gone through equally awful childhoods and don't end up killing someone.
Exactly.
So,
It always blows my mind when I'm like reading something like this because like I kept having to correct myself from saying men. I was like, they're boys.
Yeah, they're boys.
Even 19. You're still a child.
Yeah, you are.
19. And just to get to that level of anger or whatever it is that
their brains aren't fully formed.
I know, but it's just like, I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to compute when anyone of any age does that kind of thing, but, like, for teenagers,
Yeah.
I'm just like, how do you get to that point in such a short amount of time?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
nice job covering it.
thank you.
Never a good case, but a good job covering said case.
Yeah. I know all the legal mumbo jumbo because I read all of their appeals thingies.
Perfect. That's going to come in handy maybe one day.
Yeah. I didn't what I noticed is that when it was like, okay, like the first appeal was, something about the evidence or that this shouldn't have been included or that shouldn't have been
Oh,
whatever,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
whatever.
All the different appeal things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like that was kind of helpful because it would go back to like what someone said and maybe even like more detail.
Oh,
But then it also went into like different examples of cases where like
other cases. And you're like, wait,
and I was like,
this doesn't
no,
reply.
no,
Yep.
this doesn't apply to me.
Oh,
This
yeah.
doesn't apply to
I've
me.
read plenty of those as well where you're just like, I can scroll past all of this because I don't care about these other cases.
But now I feel like I kind of know how those documents work. So I'm like, oh yeah, like I can
I
use
can
this
bop my
to
way around here.
bebop around. So apparently, Vicky's like estranged husband tried to sue the beer company from like because of the beer that the teens had been drinking at the time of the murder.
Yeah, that's a stretch.
I don't know how that worked out. I didn't look too much into it because I had the exact same thought you did.
Yeah, I don't think that just seems like you're kind of trying to get money
Yeah, exactly. Well,
on someone's
that's
death.
why it's her ex-husband.
Exactly.
So, um, but yeah.
Ah, well, nice
So
job.
thanks. It's also crazy to think, like, especially with hitchhiking, you would have thought this took place in like the 70s.
70s. Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's weird that it happened in the
I
90s.
mean, it still makes sense though because like still don't really have phones in the 90s.
No, but I feel like by then it was
The dangers were more known as well.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was a little surprising. But,
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, kind people assume that others will be kind too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, don't hitchhike.
Mm-mm.
It's not worth it.
Mm-mm.
Oh, right. What spooky tea you pouring, Lauren?
All right, so I have something haunted for us.
Nice.
In 1880, one of the founders of Birmingham, Colonel James Sloss, decided that he wanted to create train tracks in his city as a way to make his city a booming place to be. So he thought the way to do this would be to build some furnaces.
Some furnaces?
Uh-huh. Furnaces that would allow the city to produce what was needed at the time, iron.
So like
Like an iron making furnace.
I've just never heard of it be a furnace. I always thought I would like a factory
Maybe it's a furnace factory. A factory with many furnaces.
that makes iron.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay. Harry Hargreaves, a recent engineer graduate, helped with this project. He built 2 types of Whitwell furnaces. Whitwell was his engineer teacher, and his teacher had made these furnaces. And so he
Oh.
took the design to make these ones.
Nice.
So each was 59 feet or 18 meters tall and 18 feet or 5.4 meters wide. During its first year in operation, the furnaces produced 24,000 tons of high quality iron.
Would you want iron though? Because doesn't iron rust? Wouldn't you want steel?
I don't know what they were thinking in the 1880s.
I'm just saying.
That was many a year ago. In 1927, 48 tiny homes were built near the furnaces to house the mainly Black employees. From 1882 to 1972, the Sloss Furnace was the main building that transformed ore into hard steel, so it also then eventually made steel.
Okay.
And Sloss Furnaces was relied on by the entire country to provide these materials.
Oh.
But it wasn't a safe job working near these furnaces, and the conditions were awful, as you can imagine.
That's interesting because I feel like Andrew Carnegie would be around at the time and he did steel up in Pittsburgh.
No idea.
I know I'm getting besides the point, but
Also things I didn't look up
I know.
in my research. In the summer, temperatures inside could reach up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit
Jesus.
or 49 degrees Celsius. Other conditions were that boiling steam would sometimes spray from the various pipes that could boil you alive.
There was a story we did where one of these things, because it got so hot, it exploded.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Can't remember which state that was in, but
I can't remember either.
very plausible.
Yeah,
Carbon monoxide lingered everywhere and noxious fumes would be emitted from the stacks.
that's not good.
Visibility was horrible and workers were forced to work 12 hours on end in these extremely dangerous and life-threatening conditions. And I'm sure it's not surprising to guess, but accidents and deaths weren't an uncommon thing. In late November of 1882, Alec King and Bob Mayfield, 2 black laborers, were lowered into the number 1 furnace on a platform. Their job was to remove the deposits of coke and ore that would cling to the inner walls. So I looked up what coke is. It's a solid fuel produced by heating coal in the absence of air to remove vital components, leaving behind a hard, porous material with a high carbon content.
I'm assuming the furnace wasn't on when they went in there.
It is, in a way.
What?
So they're using picks to chip away at the coke and ore, but suddenly a huge mass of congealed ore dislodged from the walls and plunged into the furnace. This caused, so maybe it's off at this point, but it's still like there, like all the ore and the stuff. So this caused huge clouds of gas and smoke to shoot up the furnace. The toxic fumes caused the 2 men to start coughing uncontrollably and eventually start choking, causing them to fall from the platform and right into the furnace. They did not make it.
Oh.
Just a few days later, another laborer named Samuel Cunningham met his death. He was a worker who had just arrived from Kentucky. The conditions that he had to work in and the awful work drove Samuel into a state of deep depression. One day, he walked over to Alice number 1, one of the main giant furnaces. He climbed up to the top of the stack, then jumped into the roaring furnace while his coworkers watched on in horror.
Yeah, it makes sense this place is haunted.
Yeah. But one of the best-known work-related deaths was that of Theophilus Calvin Jowers.
What a name.
I know. After the Civil War, Jowers left his father's plantation to look for a better future, and he thought he'd make a good fortune in the iron industry. In 1870, he married Sarah Latham and started working in an iron factory, learning how to convert hardwood into charcoal. In 1873, he and Sarah moved to Oxmoor, where Jowers found work at another mining and transportation company, gaining even more experience. In the spring of 1887, he was offered a job as assistant foundryman at the Alice Furnace No. 1 in Birmingham. In this new position, Jowers would be responsible for maintaining the same high level of productivity that the furnace was used to. On September 10, 1887, Jowers was directing a team who had the job of replacing an old bell in the furnace with a new one.
I was going to say, so he's like more like a managerial position, like, or is he still doing the labor?
He's still doing some of the labor.
Okay.
Like, he's doing the labor, but kind of like the lead of it.
Okay.
So, like, directing people what they have to do, but also doing the jobs as well.
Yeah.
So he had the job of holding the rope that had the bell attached to it. So
bell.
Some bell they had to change in the furnace.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how furnaces work, but there's a bell.
Okay.
So as he was holding the rope, he tripped, which caused him to release his hold on the rope. The enormous bell and Jowers fell into the molten iron, which he was immediately consumed by. His coworkers used a piece of sheet iron attached to a piece of gas pipe to retrieve his remains, which consisted of only his head, bowels, 2 hip bones, and a few ashes.
I was going to say, I feel like you completely just...
Yeah, you're just like lava. So back to the conditions, the workers in the furnace had to work in shifts, and one of those was the graveyard shift. In the early 1900s, James Wormwood, known as Slag, began working as the foreman for the graveyard shift. Slag had 150 men who worked under him during the shift, and their main job was to keep the furnace fed, making sure it always had enough materials to keep the heat up and the fire roaring. But Wormwood, Slag, was cruel to his workers, and the only thing he cared about was making himself look good to his superiors, which he did at the expense of those workers.
Oh, no.
He would make them take extremely dangerous risks, and during his time as the foreman, death records showed that 47 men lost their lives. There were also numerous accidents, some accidents that were so bad it left men unable to work again.
Jesus.
Like an incident that occurred when an explosion caused 6 men to lose their eyesight.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, like real bad conditions.
I doubt there was workers' comp back then.
The men weren't allowed to take breaks or take time off for the holidays. So, of course, there's no workers' comp.
There's clearly no unions yet.
Probably not.
Yeah.
When did unions start?
The Industrial Revolution, early 1900s. Kind of around the same time like child labor laws.
The American Federation of Labor, founded in 1886, became a prominent and enduring force in the labor movement. So this was like right around that time, but probably hadn't reached them yet.
And you said that most of the workers were black, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's... Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
They don't even have voting rights at this point. So, like...
Yep. And they were very cheap labor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's also why you used to have children working in factories, because they were also cheap labor.
Yep.
And then, yeah.
You
said, we can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Another horrible accident took place in October of 1906.
Wait. Sorry. Google when OSHA became a thing.
April 28th, 1971.
Damn!
Yeah. Nixon signed the Occupational Safety and Health Act on December 29th, 1970, and it was enacted on April 28th, 1971.
Whew. So we even got a long time before anyone's even making sure regulations are being met, let
Way
alone
long
like
before that.
workers' rights.
Right. So, Wormwood was standing on top of the highest blast furnace, known as Big Alice, when he lost his footing and fell into a pool of melted iron.
Oh, God, that just.
He died instantly.
Mm.
But some speculated if it was actually an accident.
Oh?
Some believe that he was pushed by his workers.
Oh, right. This is the mean guy.
Yeah. As an act of revenge for how horribly Wormwood treated them. But it was ultimately ruled as just a tragic accident.
Well.
But Wormwood wasn't the only one who lost his life by hot iron. There are at least 3 other men who died the same way. Some work teams were required to load ore into the vertical hoists. Once it was at the top of the stacks, workers, known as fillers, would then dump the loads into the flaming furnace. But they had to work fast, and by trying to do so, they would often not be paying attention to their footing. If they lost their footing, they could and would fall into the molten
I
iron.
wonder why they had to work fast.
Because they have to get as much done as they can.
I was thinking, like, if there's, like, as they put it in, if, like, some sort of reaction happens.
Oh, I don't think it was anything like that.
Oh, it
I
just is, like,
get to work and get it done
God.
kind of thing.
That's fucked.
Like with our Wormwood guy,
Yeah.
he wanted to show his superiors that he was good. So he's
Right.
like, look at how fast we can work.
Okay, I see, I see.
Mhm. There were a number of other accidents that occurred at Sloss Furnaces. 2 men, Sloss.
Sloss.
Not floss. I was like, wait, no. At Sloss Furnaces, 2 men lost their lives when they tried to cut loose a piece of ore that had been jammed into the machine. Another worker was trying to eat his lunch next to a rotating gear. He got just a bit too close and his clothes got stuck in the gear. He was crushed to death in front of his coworkers. But in the 50s and 60s, public and environmental health started to become important, and measurements showed that these furnaces caused an enormous amount of pollution, not to mention just the dangerous working conditions, so the oldest of the furnaces had to be closed. In 1971, all of the Sloss furnaces were closed for good and donated to the state of Alabama.
OSHA!
Oh my God, yes! Full circle.
Full circle!
The state decided to use the furnaces for industrial purposes and to house a museum. It also became a workplace for artists who worked with iron. In 1981, it was designated as a National Historic Landmark as a way to symbolize Birmingham's industrial heritage and serving as an educational museum and cultural center. Today, Sloss holds metal art classes and concerts, among other things, and during Halloween, it acts as a haunted attraction.
I want to do like a metal glass thingy one day.
That would be fun.
I think that looks so cool.
It does look really cool. And like glass blowing, so cool.
Looks so cool. Like, how do people figure out they have that kind of talent?
Like you and me, we go to a class one day and we're like, hey, I'm really good at this.
Or like, like someone, never mind, keep going. I'm just thinking like, okay, someone is like making glass. Obviously that had to be figured out, which like, that's crazy.
It looks like candy.
But then to think like, oh, maybe if I blow into this. I don't know. It's just like, you got to wonder sometimes how people.
Well, it's like that with food too. Like,
a lot
like
of foods
a crab,
are accidents.
An artichoke, like things like that. Like, what did you do that you opened this and you're like, I can eat this? A kiwi. Just things that you would never think to just let me cut into this random thing and try it and hope I don't die.
That's got to be environmental though.
Oh.
Like you're eating the food, like the fruits and vegetables and food that are common in your area.
Yeah, but how did the first person know that it was okay to be eaten?
They didn't die.
Mackenzie. Serious. Exactly, though. That's what I'm saying.
They didn't know. They just hoped for the best.
Oh, my God. Myself, I could never.
No.
So with all the deaths, accidents, and awful conditions, it's probably no surprise that I keep putting Sloss Furnace has a reputation of being quite haunted. Nowadays, there is so much paranormal activity that goes on at the furnace that the local police have been called frequently to come check it out.
Oh my God.
Only for them to leave finding nothing. And like the spirits know about Halloween, activity seems to peak during September and October, though some say that the activity is present all year long and doesn't just restrict itself to September and October. The furnace
Equal opportunity ghosts.
Right. They're like, we're going to be here all year round. The furnace is home to many ghosts, but one of the main ghosts at the Sloss Furnace is James Woodward, the mean foreman. After his suspicious death, his old workers would claim...
His name was Wormwood.
What did I say?
Woodward.
Wormwood.
Okay.
You're correct. I don't know.
Look at the turntables. All of a sudden, I have this clear mind and I am so articulate. This is crazy. Is this what you feel like?
Yeah. So after his suspicious death, his old workers would claim that they could still feel his presence, and sometimes they could even see him, walking around near the furnaces, patrolling to make sure that everyone was working. In 1926, a night watchman was injured when an unseen force, believed to be wormwood, pushed him from behind. A voice then shouted at him to get back to work. Then in 1947, 3 supervisors were found, knocked out cold on the boiler room floor. When asked what had happened, all 3 men reported being approached by an angry man who was covered in horrific burns. He then demanded that they all return to work.
This would make a good scary movie.
It really would. But probably the worst experience happened in 1971 on the verge of the closing of the furnaces. Because of OSHA. Samuel Blumenthal, a night workman,
What?
Blumenthal. Samuel Blumenthal.
Okay. That sounds better than blue menthol.
It does. Blumenthal. A night watchman encountered a half-man, half-demon who attempted to push him up the stairs towards the catwalk. When Samuel refused to go upstairs, he said that the entity started beating him. Later, when looking at the spots he had been hit, there were 3rd-degree burn marks instead of bruises.
Oh, shit.
He died a couple days after his encounter with the monster.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble for this person who worked for me getting injured, so we're going to say that it was a monster.
He was the night guard. He was all by himself.
Right, so there's no one to say otherwise.
That's true. I don't know. They all just think it was all wormwood. Now, many who visit report feeling a pair of unseen hands on their back, pushing them, especially while on the catwalk. Another ghost that is known to haunt the furnace is Theophilus Calvin Jowers.
That guy.
Yeah. He vowed to his wife, quote, "As long as a furnace stands in this county, I'll be there."
That's a weird promise.
One day while working on Alice Furnace, he lost his footing and fell into the molten iron.
Right.
Very little of him was fished out, but true to his word, he never left, and many claim to see a shadow. It is mainly seen in areas that are far too hot for a living man. He is usually urging his crew to keep the furnace hot. Not long after his death, workers would report feeling surprisingly cold when they were on the bridge leading to the Alice Furnace.
I'm sure that was a bit of a relief, though, too, sometimes.
Probably. Like, ooh, I don't like feeling this, but oh.
Yes.
His son John even once saw the smoky apparition of his father at Sloss Furnaces, but he did have an experience with his father shortly after his father's death. John Jowers had just purchased a new 1927 Model T Ford.
Ooh.
He wanted to take his son Leonard on a drive down First Avenue so he could show his son where his father, worked. They made it to the furnace and John got out, got Leonard out, and grabbed his hand so they could walk closer and get a closer look. As they were leaning over the metal rail looking down at the furnace, John saw a man walking through the scorching flames. He immediately pointed at the spot for his son to see, but the man was gone. John returned often and would often see his father's ghost walking along doing his job while leaning over the railing. In 1897, a local painter's body was found in the open water tank on the Sloss Furnace property. His body had been boiled, and a newspaper article from the time suggested that the painter was murdered on site. He had last been seen drinking at a bar the night before with some unknown parties, and the Sloss Furnace was far from the man's home, maybe indicating that he was taken there against his will.
Damn.
Now it is said that objects laying near the open water tank will mysteriously move around the site from their original resting spot.
What kind of items?
Items. Maybe like a pen, a cup. I don't know.
Because this is outside, right?
Just near the open water tank.
But isn't that outside the factory?
I'm not sure.
Oh.
I'm not sure how the factory is set up.
Oh.
There were no pictures to tell me.
Oh. That'll be fun for you later.
What to look? Oh, yeah. You're right, it will be. I'll find them, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Ron Bates, a tour guide, told a story about one time when the city officials and plant managers were having a ceremony of sorts at Sloss Furnace. All of a sudden, a white deer ran through the crowd and disappeared. Some say that the deer was the reincarnation of a woman, pregnant out of wedlock in the early 1900s, who walked through the gates of the furnace, climbed over Alice No. 1, and jumped into the flames.
Jesus.
Ron Bates says that the deer will appear when dignitaries visit the furnace on special occasions. But not like a real deer.
A white deer.
A white deer that, like, disappears. So it's not a real deer.
Kind of like, what are those things in Harry Potter?
Patronus.
Yeah.
Exactly what I was thinking. He also said that the most haunted building is the Blowing Engine Building. You give me a look like I know what that is. I don't know what that is. It's just one of the buildings.
I didn't give you a look like you knew what it was. I gave you a look of, I don't know what that is.
Oh, yes, and I can't explain.
Wait, what's it called again?
The Blowing Engine Building.
The Blowing Engine Building. Okay.
Maybe that's where they learned to glass blow.
Okay.
It was built in 1902 and is the oldest building still standing at the Sloss Furnace. Ron Bates said that he would sometimes see the shape of a person out of the corner of his eye, but the moment he turned to look, the shape would be gone. Sloss Furnaces, with all of its hauntedness, is a place much loved by ghost hunters. One ghost hunter, Kevin Walden, was investigating the tunnels underground on his own when he was hit in the face by an unseen force.
Every story you tell, there's a new addition onto this fucking factory.
I know.
I'm like, there's tunnels now?
The tunnels were used as, like, the cooling, so water would go through there to kind of cool everything. That was, like, their cooling system. The mark left on him was still visible for a while afterwards.
Wait, what happened to him?
He got slapped in the face by an unseen force.
That's so funny.
Ghost Adventures with Zach Bagans came here as well. Aaron, who's like the guy who's always with him. Aaron is the one whose wife put the hit out on him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he got stung in his eye, believed to be by the same ghost who smacked Walden in the face.
Stung?
Stung.
How do you get stung by a person?
I don't know, Mackenzie. But it's not a person, it's a ghost. Zach and Aaron also heard footsteps. Ghost Chasers International, a group from Bradston, Kentucky, visited. When they first arrived, they immediately saw an apparition on the catwalk. They then picked up an EVP on the night they were investigating that said, "Hi, Daddy, here's your lunch."
Aw.
Turned out, at the time when workers lived right on the property, it was common for children and their mothers to bring food to the workers for lunch and dinner.
That's nice.
Yeah. Chip Coffey, a nationally known psychic, accompanied the Ghost Chasers group.
Wait.
His name is
Say the sentence again.
Chip Coffey,
Uh-huh.
a nationally known psychic,
Uh-huh.
accompanied the Ghost Chasers group.
Given name?
I think so. He's in the show Kindled Spirits. It's like a ghost hunting show.
But like someone said, let's name our son Chip.
I think so.
And the last name Coffee.
I think so.
Chip Coffee.
We like him. Apparently he's a great guy.
Still has a weird name.
Well, yeah. So the group entered the factory portion of the mill. Chip had just sat down when he began feeling the presence of a man who had been injured on the job.
That narrows it down.
Chip said that he didn't get the impression that the man lost his life, just a limb.
That narrows it down.
Right after Chip felt this, one of the investigators noted something on Chip's hands. It was blood. Chip and the whole area was looked over, but they weren't able to find where the blood could have possibly come from. They were even able to capture the blood on Chip's hands on video. I did not look at the video because it wasn't provided in this article.
And that is where your research stops.
I haven't felt good, okay?
It's okay.
Ghost hunting groups have captured loud banging noises in response to questions, like intelligent responses.
Yes.
Another group had a handful of pebbles thrown at them when they asked for a sign that someone was there.
Damn.
Another group took a picture at the end of a tunnel and got what appeared to be a shadowy image of a little girl.
I can just imagine being like in a room as a ghost and these people are coming in. They're like, show us a sign. And they're like frantically looking around to find something to do. And they're like, pebbles, here.
I don't want to touch them. I'll throw something at them
Right.
instead. Bob Giordano from the paranormal research group Ghoul, Ghoul, from Alabama said,
That's how you spell ghoul.
but they do it like gh.o.u.l.
Does it stand for something?
Probably, but I couldn't find that. It wasn't in the notes.
Where are they from?
Alabama.
Oh. Ghosts of...
Are our loves. Are your loves.
Why is there an R in ghoul?
There's not. Are our loves. But then I said your love for you are.
But
I'm just going to keep reading.
Okay.
Okay. So Bob said, quote, she's holding her arm out like she's carrying something, but you don't see anything in her hand. It was definitely a full-bodied apparition. His wife also had a wild experience. He and another investigator were on the catwalk in the boiler room when his wife was sitting down. Suddenly, his wife started to say that she was beginning to feel cold, so Bob immediately took her photo with like one of the thermal imaging cameras.
Mm-hmm.
When they were looking at the photograph, they saw an image of a dog who obviously wasn't there when the photo was taken. Quote, it was standing on its hind legs looking at my wife. You could clearly see its tail too. She didn't feel the dog though, just the cold, Bob said.
Aww.
Isn't that kind of cute?
Why was a doggy there?
It was a ghost doggy. Dogs have always been pets.
Not at a furnace factory.
I don't know.
It was a guard dog.
Yes. Yeah, it was guard dog. People who have visited have reported seeing ghostly figures with badly burned skin, seeing a figure wearing blue overalls, hearing disembodied voices, and feeling an unnatural presence.
Okay, here's what I am wondering. Because I feel like sometimes you hear about like the ghost stuff and it's like, I think like Casper.
Okay.
But then like you're saying stuff like this where they have burns and I'm like, that feels like you see a whole ass person
Yeah.
with like detail.
Yeah, maybe.
But are they like translucent?
No idea.
Okay.
Maybe there's varying levels of translucency.
Okay.
There have been reports of what sounds like heavy metal chains banging against the furnaces, and down in the waterway that served as a cooling system, people have reported hearing whispers. There have been temperatures that rapidly drop in certain areas, indicating a ghost.
Mm.
A woman's voice was heard near the boiler room. People have also reported feeling dizzy and getting a headache while in this room. The feelings all disappear the moment the person leaves.
Gotta wonder what toxic fumes might still linger.
Oh
that
my
way.
God. Yes, actually, that's more of a reason. A glowing humanoid shape is often seen lurking around on the catwalk. Some people believe that the shadows and apparitions seen in the furnace are those poor souls who lost their lives here. HGTV even compiled a list of the most haunted locations in each state, and Sloss Furnace made it on that list. After all, it's not shocking to see why.
Yeah, seriously.
And there's Sloss Furnace.
Not to be confused with floss,
Right, not to be confused with Floss Furnace.
which is not a thing.
No, it is not. This is Sloss.
Like you first said furnace, I had to like think for a second. I'm like, not furniture.
No,
Like,
like big things that have a lot of heat.
yeah. Just interesting. A furnace
Yeah,
instead of a factory.
it might be like a furnace factory with like multiple furnaces.
But like when you say furnace factory, it sounds like the factory is making furnaces, but it's a factory that has furnaces in it.
Yeah, I believe. We just know there's Big Alice, and then there's another furnace that they don't really talk about much.
Yeah, how many furnaces were there?
I think 2, but maybe 3 at one point.
There had to be 3 because why would you have Alice number 1 if you don't have an Alice number 2?
I don't
You
know.
have Big Alice, Alice number 1.
I think Big Alice and Alice number 1 were the same.
Oh, I thought they were 2 different ones.
You know, nothing really specified. Some would call it Big Alice and some would call it Alice number 1.
Oh, I thought they were 2 different furnaces.
Who's to say? Maybe my research of looking at pictures will help me differentiate. But the furnaces all look the same and they're the same height and diameter and everything, so I'm not really sure how that's going to help.
So there wasn't one that was actually bigger than the rest?
I don't think so.
Hmm.
At least the guy who made his Whitwell furnaces or whatever, our engineer, he made them both the same size.
Maybe Alice number 1 and Big Alice are the same thing.
Maybe. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
So were they all named Alice? And why were they named Alice? What a name for a furnace. Like not like
Bertha.
or Frank. Frank the
Frank the
furnace.
furnace. I think it had to have a girl name though. Frances.
It always does.
Frances the furnace. Francine the furnace.
What was the name of the principal in Matilda?
Turnbald, Turnblanche. Miss Turnbald.
Something like that.
Yeah.
That should be the name.
Trenchbull.
Trenchbull.
Yeah.
Trenchbull. But
Yeah.
I don't remember what her first name was.
Miss.
Okay.
Well, thanks for listening. Rate and review us on things. Let us know when you've done so, and we'll send you stickers. Stickers have been sent out.
Stickers have been sent.
Amazing. So hopefully you get those soon if you haven't already got them.
We don't currently have a P.O. box, and so there's no return address, but I did put just a scary state so you didn't freak out that you were getting some random
Mail. So yeah, so don't be freaked out when you see there's no return address yet.
Granted, if you turned it over, you would also see a sticker that seals the envelope, so.
All the context clues are there.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess that's all we have.
Yeah.
So stay scary.
And stay safe.